Hi and welcome to the Martin Bell Show. Hopefully you've been keeping well. In the video today I'm going to be reading from the Daily Mail online from the money section of this newspaper, which I'm going to be reading the article today, which is going to be about which version of investment fund is best to buy. Baffling jargon like ACC, which I think does mean accumulation funds, which means the dividends reinvests into itself. So that means you would have to sell out your position slightly to get hold of that dividends, which is something I personally don't want to be doing. I want to hold my position and then have it dripping off personally. INC, then you got DIS, which just stands for distributions, which I'm thinking means that you get paid the dividends and then you don't have to sell out of your position and you still get paid and you still have a position. Not to mention I, R and F are explained. So before I go any further, this video does not constitute as financial advice. This is just me documenting my journey for inspirational, motivational or educational purposes only. So, Jason Holland, Managing Director of DIY investing platform Best Invest, explains how you can navigate your way through the fund jargon maze. So here's a scenario. You read about a successful investment fund and decide to take the plunge and open an online ISA with a wad of your hard-earned cash. Now all that is left to do is search for that fund. You begin tapping in the name, but hang on a minute, instead of being presented with one version of the fund to choose, you're served up with a list of funds with the same name, but each of them has a different set of abbreviations, letters or numbers at the end. So, never underestimate the ability of financial service industry to bamboozle the public with jargon and leave people utterly confused. When it comes to fund names, what do these strange letters mean? And importantly, which one should you choose? So, what do common investment abbreviations mean? The reason why there are typical multiple versions of the same fund is a variety of share classes are created to cater for investors with slightly different needs. So let's take a look at these. So, ACAC, INC or DIS. Most of these will have at least two share classes which either carry the letters ACC or INC at the end. These abbreviations for accumulation or income. If you select the income version, any income generated by the fund, such as dividends from shares or payments known as coupons from bonds, will be paid out to you and will sit in your account to you do something with it, or you can reinvest it. And that's the personal path that I'm going down, because I want the cash flow and the income, the passive income. I don't want it dripping into itself, because I don't want to have to sell out my position personally for me to get a hold of it. So occasionally some funds may carry the abbreviation DIS, which stands for distribution, or instead of INC, but it effectively means the same thing. If you're looking to receive a regular income from your investments, perhaps you should apply to supplement a pension, then the income of a distribution version of the fund could be the one for you. And that's what I'm doing. That's why I've set up most of mine, or actually all of mine, in my SIP are all passive income distributions or income funds or pensions, income funds or income ETFs or income single stocks. So if you don't need to draw an income, then choose the accumulation share class instead if it's available. And sometimes they do have a lower cost because obviously there's less management, but personally, I want the income. I want the passive income. So here, any income generated by the fund won't be automatically paid out, but will instead roll up inside of the funds and grow the capital value of your investments in the future further. And the only way to get hold of that would be to sell out of that position. It is worth pointing out that over the long term, most of the total returns of the UK stock market, after factoring the effect of inflation, has come from the reinvestment of dividends. And that is very true, but why you can still do that for yourself. I have like a a SIP where I have the drip turned on, where it buys more into itself. It drips into itself, but I can turn it off when I'm older, and then I can then start to draw down. But with accumulation, you'd have to sell out to get hold. This is called compounding, and compounding interest is so beautiful. I love compounding interest, receiving compound interest, that is. This is called compounding, and it refers to the effect of the returns you will make on previous returns on top of the original sum invested. Nobel Prize winner and physicist Albert Einstein referred to compounding as the most powerful force in the universe. Unless you really need to draw an income now, reinvesting any income is a very sound move, and that is what I'm doing. It's all going to be reinvested, as it's money that I wouldn't have had if I... It's money I wouldn't have had. I'd have to do more hours or do more work or a higher skilled job to earn that money. So I might as well just put it to work in the future. So I, R, and F. Funds will often have random letters or sometimes numbers tagged to the end. This baffling code signifies versions of the same underlying fund that reach aimed at different types of investors, and this usually means different levels of fees. If your fund is tagged with R, or perhaps RET, it's designated as a retail shares class, as a version aimed at members of the public. But hang on, there are versions of the fund which have the highest fees because most individual investors don't have the same bulk buying power as institutional investors such as private client investment managers or pension funds. However, the good news is that there really is no need to put up with higher fee retail share classes these days. Most online investment platforms have access to low-cost versions aimed at institutional investors, and which are, you guessed it, denoted with an I, or letters in ISTA at the end of the fund name. Through occasionally the term prof for professional might be used. If you're lucky, your broker or online platform might have access to a version of the fund with the letter F at the end. Don't worry, this doesn't mean a poor score F for fail. Far from it. It might mean you have access to a fonder share class, usually the lowest cost version of a fund of all. When new funds launch, they're trying to get critical mass. Wealth managers and major investors who were early backers are often rewarded with the access to the share class with heavily discounted annual fees. If your online platform is provided by a group who back the fledgling fund at launch, you may be able to benefit from the reduced version of the fund too. And that does actually happen. I do have that with Hargreaves Lansdown. I do have actually some discounts on some of the funds, which is pretty sweet. So, but an F tagged into the fund might mean that also stand for feeder, which is explained below. So GPP, which is British pounds, EUR, euro, USD, which is probably US dollars, US dollar. Funds are often launched with different share classes that are priced in different currencies. This is so that they can be marketed to potential investors in a variety of countries. You will therefore see currency displayed with GPP, meaning the fund share prices in pound sterling, or GPX, which is British pounds pence, and it's in pennies instead of pounds. So USD stands for the US dollar, and Euro stands for the Euro. Oh, EUR stands for Euro, sorry. And you may come across other currency abbreviations as well. And the underlying fund is exactly the same in each case, and performance will be the same. So if you're based in the UK, then select the GPP version. And if you are confronted with such a choice, often the online platform for UK investors will only make sterling versions available. H is for hedged. Should you invest in a hedge fund? Calling currency moves in are notoriously hard, but some investors are tempted to protect themselves. Read more. So, a relatively small number of funds have share classes that seek to eliminate or minimize the risk of currency exchange rate moves. These funds might carry the letter H or the word hedged in the name, followed by the letters denoting what currency returns are being converted back into, such as British pounds. These versions of funds should neither be confused with hedged funds, a type of fund aimed at ultra-high net worth investors that have gained a degree of notoriety, nor should they be confused with share classes that are simply priced in a particular currency. A currency hedged version or a fund can have a widely different returns from its controversial siblings. These share classes designed for professional investors who might have a short, medium-term view on particular currency that want to factor in when investing overseas. For example, if an investor is very positive about the outlook for the US stock market but negative on the prospects for the US dollar, a currency hedge version of the fund that strips out the impact of a potential rise in value of the pound over the dollar could be worth considering. However, currency movements are difficult to predict, and therefore these should only be considered to be very experienced investors who are confident enough to take decisions on current exchange rates and critically decide whether it's right to change their currency views. So, F stands for feeder funds. Certain funds carry the word feeder in their title. Rest assured, this has nothing to do with meals or eating up your hard-earned cash. Well, I haven't actually heard the word feeder before, so this is going to be interesting to learn this with you. And I wonder, hopefully, this video has told you some other things as well. So, if you have any further questions, please feel free to get to me by comment, and I'll do my best to answer you. But as I said, I am not a licensed professional. I cannot give advice, but I can just document what I'm doing or personally what I'm doing. But it's not financial advice. So, you will often see this term used when investing in funds exposed to assets like physical property. The underlying property portfolio might be owned by a variety of investors such as insurance funds and pensions through a master fund that will normally include the letters P, A, I and F in the name. This stands for Property Authorised Investment Fund, a type of unit trust fund with certain rules. Some investors might not want to invest directly in a PIFF for tax reasons or are ineligible, so feeder funds have been created to enable them to invest indirectly by creating a fund that invests in another fund. Very clever. If all this sounds confusing and overly technical, the relevant point is the form of the feeder fund will closely mirror the master fund, and so this is not something worth fretting about. Open-ended property funds can be problematic, with many forced to suspend dealing last year, and so if you're thinking of investing in a property fund, it is usually better to look at listed investment companies such as real estate investment trusts instead, where blissfully there is usually just one share class, and which is ETF. Oh no, real estate investment trust, so that's a REIT. So again, never underestimate the finance industry ability to baffle the public. So on a final note, to add up the confusion, there is not a common approach to fund name abbreviations across the industry, so there are different letters and numbers that are used at each fund company. A share class might have A, C, M and Z or a number at the end, or a hard decipher combination or like U2 or P1. These almost always denote different fees structures, so always check what the annual costs are before investing. If, after reading all this, you think you are very wrong version of a fund, contact your investment platform or financial advisor if you use one and ask to switch. If in doubt, ring up the fund company. So, that does sound quite interesting. Definitely does sound quite interesting. The comment section box below does really harp on about some of the fund companies, about the integrity of the newspaper, about how they recommend doing fund companies, obviously because they're trying to imply that they're getting a fee, which might be true, might not be true, you do not know. But everyone's got to make their money somehow, which is very fair. But funds sometimes do very well, but it's important to have a balanced portfolio as well, but I'm going to be mainly invested into ETFs. I have some funds, but not too many. So just sounds very interesting. So if you found this video useful and you liked it, then please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you click the bell notification button, you get notified when I next release a video or if I go live. So I hope you found this video informative and useful. Smashing that like button helps the algorithm know that you like the content, and it gets it out there to help more people. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I will see you all soon.